seen my video and to have me make a video specially to answer your question, send me an email to englishclubusa@yahoo.com, and you can visit my website at englishclubusa.com for a free life membership. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Every English teacher has their style, and every student has their desires. So the style of English teachers often takes years to teach English. But the desire that English students have is to learn English as quickly as possible. Well, this is probably the best video that you will ever see in your life. In this video, what I would like to do is I would like to help you achieve your goals of learning English and thinking and speaking and writing just as well as a native speaker. So the question is there a system, a real system that actually works for everyone so that you can learn English in less than 1 year? And the answer is yes. Because in the last 10 years, I have been teaching English here in Uruguay. All of my students had learned English in less than a year. So the question is, what is it that's so important to understand about learning English? And in which order do you need to do things in order to be successful? So let's take a look and see what is the step one for every beginner who is trying to learn English. And the step one is to understand that the first step for anything has to do with time. If you do not use a time reference, you do not speak English. And the reason why time reference is so important is because when you will start learning verbs and you will understand that there is a past and there's a future and maybe there is something that we call now, the only way to do this is to try to use some kind of a time reference. So that will be the step number one to learn in English language. So before we continue, what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to understand how time reference is important to understand verb tenses. English language, as I told in every single video, is binary. That means there are only two things to know about time in English language. Anybody who says that present exists or now exists is 100% wrong. There are no 12 or 14 tenses in English language. There are only two, because English is binary. And the only way how you can learn language quickly or anything quickly, if you can think of things in two ways. And tiempo, time, tenses in English language are in fact binary. Which are the tenses that you need to understand? What you need to understand is that time never stops. When you say now, you're not talking about now. What you're talking about something that has just happened and probably something that will happen in a few minutes. So what is it about tenses that is really important to understand? And what's important to understand is that time has only two factors. One factor is the past, and pasts are always facts. What has happened, it's done. You cannot change it. And then what you haven't done, that's your future. And that can change. So the number one step is you need to understand exactly how to think about time in English. And you can never do it well without understanding time reference. So when you talk about now, what is it now? What is now for us? Well, for you and for me, now is this video. This video had a start, and this video will have a finish. So for us now is not the moment I'm talking, but for us now is the start and the end of the video. And both of us need to be physically inside the time reference that we're talking about. So if I say now, you should automatically think that, aha, this video. And if you think that way, you think like a native speaker. So if you say that now, that means in this video, we are learning time references. There's something that you learned at the beginning of the video, and there will be something that you have not learned, but you will definitely learn before the end of the video. So what happens is that now, in fact, has two parts. Now has a past, and now has a future. So let's look at another example. In a few minutes, which is after now, we are finishing the most interesting video class on YouTube. That means our video class will finish here, and whatever happens after this moment and before the end of the video, that is definitely 100% will happen. There's no chance. This is your future. So in fact, when you say future, how many futures are there? And you know me well by now that there are only, everything is two, everything is binary. That means that the present is binary, that has a past and a future. And the future is binary because it has something that 100% for sure will happen before the end of the class. And then there will be other things that will happen, but we're not sure if they're going to happen. Maybe there's a small probability, maybe there's a high probability. So future is binary too. Last night, I was doing video homework on EnglishClubUSA.com. So last night, did I finish doing my video homework? Maybe yes, maybe no. So last night is my reference to the past. And you know that last night I was doing. Did I start last night? You don't know. Did I finish last night? You don't know. So this format, when you're talking about last night, and this format, when you're talking about the past continuous, which is was doing, tells you that the process of doing homework on EnglishClubUSA.com existed, but we don't know if that is something the process started last night or ended last night. Tomorrow, I could do another video class and video homework. So if you say tomorrow I could do, what you're telling me, there's a probability, and there will be a special class on all of the tenses in English language, but this is a probability in the future. What level of probability? Watch the video. But this is definitely a future. It is not 100% future. It is outside after the video that we're looking at today. So let's look what else we need in order to be good at this stage of the beginner intermediate. Remember, two things that you must learn in order to be able to think, speak, and write just like a native speaker. And those two things are the world is binary with Valeria, their prepositions, and their verbs. So as we just talked about the verbs and the time reference, as beginner and intermediate speaker must learn, the next step that you must learn as a beginner and intermediate are the 13 prepositions. There are many prepositions. There are approximately 50 prepositions in English language. But the 13 prepositions that you have right here in front of you will manage 80% of your entire English language. And these are probably the most difficult prepositions to learn. That's why there is not one video, except my videos, that explain the meaning, the real meaning of prepositions. So let's take a look and see. When you look at the videos of the prepositions, there will be explanations with examples, but just to show you very quickly what the meanings are as a review. When we say at, we mean one. When we say on, we're trying to say that something existed for something else. When you use in, you're talking about two possibilities that have to do with time and place. When you're talking about to, you're talking about a goal that you have. When you're talking about from, which is the opposite of to, you're talking about an origin where something had begun or motivated for whatever it is that follows. When you're talking about an of, you're talking about one part that represents the entire thing. When you're talking about for, you're talking about something that fits or something that works for something else. When you're talking about with, you're talking about two things or more happening at the same time. When you're talking about by, you're talking about how things are happening. About, when things are not specific. And when you use one of the three prepositions, you're talking about the same thing. You're talking about something that is done completely. But why do you have three things? Very easy. Because they are the ones that manage the quality of what you're doing, of whatever that thing is, whatever is being done. And if it's done completely in a positive way, it will have an up. If it's done completely in a negative way, it will be a down. And if it's done completely as a fact, without positive or negative, it will be an out. So when you understand well the meanings of prepositions, this will basically propel you into the next level. If you do not understand the times of verbs, if you don't understand well how to use time reference, and if you don't understand well how to use prepositions, and there will be video on that as well, you cannot go to the next stage. So make sure you understand as much as you can everything that has to do with the time, verbs, the times of verbs, how we use the past, how we use the future, how we use the present, how we use the 100% futures, the probability of the futures, the different pasts inside until now, pasts that are outside of now, and that is going to be the only way how you can be successfully on your way to think just like a native speaker. So what is the next step? Let's find out. Okay, once you're comfortable with the time references in English language, you need to understand that the next step in order for you to be comfortable on the intermediate level, you need to be able to explain why things work. And if you do not explain or you cannot explain correctly why things work, and there will be a very amazing video that nobody has, there are 7 becauses in English language, and every because has its own function, you cannot advance anymore. You will be stuck at the basic level. So once you want to be comfortable in the intermediate level, so you can manage English pretty much everywhere, you need to be able to manage really well the time references and the reason references. So let's look at the example. Since I have started using Valerio video classes and video homework on EnglishClubUSA.com, I have started to think, to speak, and to write like a native English speaker. Well, this is a perfect example to show you a combination of different things involved. Well, first of all, you have to understand that you have the preposition on. Without that preposition, I don't understand. The question is, what needs to exist? Because on means there is some kind of a prior existence. So what needs to exist for video classes and video homework? Well, if there is no website, if the website doesn't exist, there are no video classes and there is no video homework. So the question is, video class and video homework on English Club USA, I have started, so since this is your other reference. So the question is, what is a sense? The sense is it because you started? Yes. If you wouldn't start, you would not speak like a native speaker. So it's a because. But in addition to it, it is starting when you started watching the videos and when you started doing the video homework. That's when you started to think, speak, and write like a native speaker. So what happens is that this sense gives you two things at the same time. You're killing two birds with one stone. You're giving a time reference, which is starting from, and you're giving a reason why you started to speak like a native speaker, and you put everything together. So what happens is that now when you can see how because functions together with the time reference, you can use English perfectly. So since I have started, your step number 2. What is this? Is it a present or is it a past? Well, it's both. Because started is the moment when you started, and have means until now. So what you have a combination of the entire thing until this moment. So starting from when you started, because you started, which is the reason, and until now, which is your time reference, you started what? You started using. Is using a noun, a verb? It is not. For using to be a verb, it needs a verb to be. But there is no verb to be. So using is not a verb. There will be a video on that. Using is a noun. Using is a what? Since I have started using the classes and the homework, I have started to think, to speak, and to write like a native English speaker. I have started. Did you finish starting? Or you're still starting? You started before, and you're still in the process of that event of starting to think like a native speaker. So this is exactly what that is. It's talking about because, it's talking about when, it's talking about now, and it's all together with a preposition. So those are the basic things that are necessary for you to be able to advance from the beginner to the intermediate and later to the advanced. Well, as we just saw, and we talked about using, which is the gerund, the ing form of the verb, you need to understand exactly that verbs in ing form and verbs that have a to are not verbs. So we will have a special video on that, how you can use verbs as nouns, as adjectives, and as adverbs that look like verbs but are not. So that is the next step if you need and want to go from intermediate to advanced. If you cannot understand how the infinitive format of a verb is different from a gerund format of a verb, you cannot speak English. Because it's everywhere. Because they function as nouns, as adjectives, and as adverbs. And they look like verbs. So unless you understand the function of the infinitive and a gerund, unless you understand the parts of speech, which are nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, unless you understand that really well, there is no way that you can possibly think like a native speaker. So let's look at the example. In one example, we have, I prefer to start learning English than to start working more hours. So the question is, what is it do you prefer? You prefer to start learning English. And in the second example is, I prefer starting to learn English than starting to work more hours. They sound the same. They're not. Only one of two examples is a correct one, and the other one is not correct. So the question is, which one is correct and which one isn't? Can you figure it out? Well, there will be a very special video on video classes to practice. That is a very difficult part of English language. But you cannot advance from intermediate to the advanced level until you master that part of verb usage. So, when you say I prefer, when you say the word prefer, are you talking about everything or are you talking about something specific? Do you have a goal of a preference? Or it doesn't matter, just give me everything. Well, obviously, if you prefer, I prefer to write with my right hand than to write with my left hand. I'm specific as to what I prefer. And that's exactly that situation. I prefer specifically to complete the goal of start learning English. Not that I prefer ing, which is everything that has to do with starting to learn English. When you prefer, you can only prefer something specific. And to is the only way to talk about something specific. And ing, which is a gerund, is the only way to talk about something in general. So, in addition to what we have spoken before, that has to do with the verbs and time references, the reason references, the 7 becauses, which we will do in a special video, the uses of the format of the verb in the infinitive and gerund, to and ing, you need to learn prepositions. And we saw that without the prepositions, there is nothing more important than that. No prepositions, no English. So in addition to the 13 prepositions that we saw, that are absolutely necessary for the basic English language, you need 7 more. And these are the 7 more. So what happens is that you definitely need to know and understand how to use preposition of, which means a change of state. The preposition into, which means a surprise. How the 3 prepositions have in common, just like in the first 13 prepositions, the up, the down, and the out. The meaning was completely, with positive, negative, and fact. Exactly the same logic works for prepositions over, across, and through. But it works in a different way. But the idea of positive, negative, and fact is exactly the same idea that works with these prepositions. Except they work in a different way. There will be a special video, watch that, but it has something to do with a start and a finish. It has something to do with a fact. It has something to do with being easy, and something that has to do with being difficult. Well, difficult is definitely negative. Easy is definitely positive. And when something is a fact, it's a fact. So, in addition to that, you have a couple of other things that refer to time duration. And there will be a special video on that, but very quickly, we use during to indicate a simple tense and we use the throughout to indicate something of a process. So, you want to think, speak, and write just like a native speaker. And I don't blame you. In 1 year, using my videos and my video homework, there's no question that you can think, speak, and write just like a native speaker. So what do you need to do? What else do you need to do in addition to vocabulary that you wish to use and what we have learned until now? So, just to review, remember, the beginner level, you definitely need to understand how to use the time reference. And the intermediate, you need to use how to use time and reason references, since there are 7 becauses. Then you need to understand on the intermediate level, to be able to advance, you need to understand how to use the infinitives and gerunds. You need to understand how to use 20, more or less, prepositions. So what else do you need to do? Remember adverbs. And adverbs has a lot to do with how things are done. And for that, you need to understand how to use a by and how to use an adverb as a phrase to give a 4-dimensional, and you will see a video on that, how to be 4-dimensional in your communication. So, finally, there's the most difficult part in English language. Once you had learned that the infinitive and gerund have 2 different formats, you need to understand how to use verbs as all 4 parts of speech. In fact, you can use the same verb for all 4 parts of speech. And there will be a very good video or number of videos and a lot of homework that you need to practice to be good at this. If you cannot be good at this, you will never be able to reach a native level. So, let me give you an example. English language should finally seem like a spider web designed to lure and to trap a prey looking for hidden answers, to see where is the light at the end of the tunnel. For you to be able to understand this, you need to be able to understand everything about English language. So, very easy, you need to understand that English, in this case, is an adjective. It describes the language. You need to understand the meaning of the word should. It's a probability of the future that has a meaning. You need to understand the verbs to be, and the verbs to be, seem is one of them. You need to understand how to use the word like, which is a comparison. There's a video on that too. You need to understand how to use past perfect and how it functions exclusively as an adjective. You need to understand the infinitive, which is to lure, another infinitive, which is to trap. You need to understand the meaning of the adjective a or an article. No, it's an adjective. You need to understand the looking for, okay, is a description, which is an adjective, that sounds like a verb, but it's not. You need to understand preposition for as what works for the one who is looking, the prey is looking for something that started to hide in the past with the goal, specific goal to see, and then to see what? Aha, that's a noun. And it starts with a where. So where is, which is a fact, the light. There's only one possibility at the end of the tunnel. There are many ends, and tunnel is an exception, is an example of how many ends there are. So something like this is actually very easy. Any person at a native level will read it and without question in 1 second understand exactly what's written. And if you're having difficulty understanding everything and connecting information, that's because you have not finished learning everything there is to know to be at a native level. So, when we get to the advanced level and we think we're completely comfortable with the English language, we understand references, we understand how to use prepositions, but then we come to the point not understanding what is the meaning of the basic verbs in English language. And that is a secret for both the beginner and the advanced. Many people skip the step and don't even think that the first and the most important step in English language is to learn the real meanings of verbs. And that is where English for everybody should have started, including the advanced speaker. So there are approximately 25 different verbs that manage about 70% of the entire English language. And it is very important to learn them. And these are just a few examples. But in addition to that, it is very important to understand that not only the meaning of the basic verbs that are important, you need to understand that there are only two functions, there are two types of verbs in English language, because English is binary. On the one hand, you have verbs that function as descriptions, and the other one as actions. And after you had learned all of this, what we have covered so far, you will be able to learn English language in less than 1 year. So let's review and let's see what is it that you need to know in order to be able to think, speak and write just like an English teacher. So let's see what you need to know in order to be able to think, speak and write just like a native speaker. Well, remember, I always say that English is binary. And that goes for the secret formula that Valerio uses with all my students who wish to learn English in less than 1 year. And the secret is, step number 1, you must learn prepositions. No prepositions, no English. That's simple. But fortunately, 20 prepositions to learn is not difficult. All you have to do is do the video homework. Make sure you do all video homework on prepositions and make sure you do it many times. Just because you did it one time, that doesn't mean that you're good at it. You need to do it as many times as possible, and there will be many video homeworks on my website, and that is the key to your success. Number 2 is you have to have a good knowledge of how the world of verbs function. And what we've covered today, you have to understand, number 1, that there are 2 types of verbs. English is binary. One type are descriptions, and the other one are action. Step number 2, you need to be able to understand the true meaning of the verbs. If you don't understand, if you think that run is moving fast, you will never be able to learn English. If you think that make means doing something with your hands or create, you will never be able to learn English. If you think that come and go means moving from one place to another, you will never be able to learn English. So, make sure that you understand very well the true meaning of the verbs. And not all of the verbs. We're talking about basic verbs. We're talking about basic 25 verbs. Make sure you understand that very well. You need to understand that the English is binary. That there is no now. And now is a line that connects your past to your future. So you need to understand that native English speakers don't think in terms of 14 different verb tenses. We don't. We think of English language as something that was in the past or in the future, or it is about to finish, or it's about to start. But one way or the other, there are only two choices, and there's nothing else. And finally, you need to understand that there are 4 functions that verbs have. That means you can use the same verb, run, and you can use the word run as a noun, as a verb, as an adjective, as an adverb. So, now you are in possession of my secrets, of the secrets why my students learn English in less than 1 year. And everybody is successful. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know you will watch this video many times. I know you will pass this video to your friends, just so that they can see exactly what is it that they have not been doing right, and what is it that they need to do. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and welcome to the world of Valerio's English. And I hope to see you next time. To be in my video and to have me make a video specially to answer your question, send me an email to englishclubusa@yahoo.com, and you can visit my website at englishclubusa.com for a free life membership. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell.